Talktainment Radio Worldwide South. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
This is The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning and welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio, and you are in touch with the compensatory concept. I am Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. On the line with me live from Washington, D.C. is Neely Fuller, who will discuss various topics that happen to come up on today's program. And speaking of that, if you would like to get involved with the program, and we would love for you to do that, you can do that by calling in at 1-877-932-9766. And Mr. Fuller will give his views on the various subjects that happen to come up according to your questions. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. How are you doing this morning?
I'm still learning.
Still learning. Yes, sir. Thank you. Before we get started, I need for you to talk about your book and how one can get it, and then I'll get right into a question that I have for you.
Well, the basic title of the book, textbook, workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, white supremacy. That's the basic subtitle. The basic title is the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. However, that won't mean anything to a reader until the reader reads into the book. But the book is directed toward solving problems for the individual person who perceives him or herself as being victimized by the system of racism, which I say is the strongest political and religious government of the entire world. It dictates what people do every day. Either they are participating in the system of racism one way or another, or they are reacting to it, which is a form of participation too within itself, because it takes in all 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. It's the dominant force in all of these areas of activity, this business of mistreatment, of dominating and mistreating people based on color in the form of what we call racism and or white supremacy. The book is directed toward individual persons and what they can do about it as individuals on a daily basis, and some ideas about how to think about it, what questions to ask people when you're talking to people, et cetera, et cetera. You can get the book and the additional word guide by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And what will come up on your screen is the method or procedure for ordering.
Okay. And I will ask you again about that so we can promote that book so that individuals who are interested can get it and understand what they're getting and know how to get it. Okay. Mr. Fuller, before we go on, there was a question that was asked by a group of people that I happen to be in conversation with, and in particular what's been going on concerning the Ray Rice situation, the former Baltimore Ravens running back. It's been all over the news. In fact, it's still on the news. Even when I left home this morning, they were still talking about it on the sports programs. It was on the CBS Evening News last night. It's been all over the talk shows. Everybody is talking about it, and in small groups. We've been talking about this domestic violence. And the question came up is this week was, how has racism or white supremacy played a role in the domestic violence area?
Well, for one thing, black people have been taught that violence is the way you handle everything. I mean, from the time that they first encountered, even prior to that, has always been violence in the world. But under the system of racism, it hasn't improved. It's gotten worse because the racists, the people who believe in racism, believe in violence. They believe that this is how you settle things. In fact, they glorify violence in every way. They glorify murder, killing, all kinds of violence. Try to come up with new ways of inflicting violence on people. And there's all kinds of violence. It's not just physical violence, but it's mental violence. And through the use of deception to the detriment of a person is a form of violence. When you deceive people with the intention of mistreating them, of taking something away from them, or misusing them, or abusing them in some way, through deception, through fooling them, and making business deals and all like that, that's a form of indirect violence. Direct violence is when you just brutalize someone by striking them or stabbing them, shooting them, dropping bombs on them. This is something that's glorified in the culture, in many cultures, even not just the white supremacist culture. Many cultures have that as the warrior mentality and whatnot, going way back through history. And so this is just an extension of it. Take advantage of somebody who's weak. Find somebody weak and walk up to them and size them up and then give them a knockout punch. I mean, sort of like a little popular thing that's been going on recently, according to the news, that's been resurrected every now and then. It's been done before, but now there are some people who are doing that again, just going around knocking people out based on, well, I don't think the person can present any danger to me. I don't think there's going to be any repercussions of it, so I'm going to hit them as hard as I can because that's fun. That's the thing to do. And so this whole culture of violence has been around like forever. So it's just an extension of it. Male taking advantage of a female, sizing her up and all like that. He sizes her up prior to doing any striking because if he thinks there's going to be some forceful retaliation that's going to be really harmful, most likely he's not going to do it. That's just the nature of all organisms. You don't challenge something that you think that if you challenge it and go up to it, that what you're going to receive is going to be double what you're putting out. Maybe you will change your mind about making that challenge. So males have taken advantage of females in that way, all down through the history of this planet. Find somebody weak. If someone picks on you, is stronger than you are, there's nothing you figure you can do about it, then look around and see if you can find somebody who's weaker than you are, and then take advantage of them. That kind of nonsense should stop. So, but now in the in the Mr. Rice case, that I think there are some things that have to be sorted out according to the law. There should be, because you should still have what you might call, quote, unquote, something called equality before the law. So if the law is involved in it, you find out what laws you have that govern that type of situation so that everybody will be treated correctly. I understand the lady herself who was assaulted has some misgivings about everybody's reaction to her being assaulted. So that has to be given consideration. So it's lots of things that has to be thought out. Sometimes things are not as simple as they appear to be. So, but just as a general thing, what I have, when it comes to male-female interaction, when two people have agreed to be with each other, I have agreed that generally speaking, maybe not so in this case, but generally speaking, pertaining to the average person on the planet, anywhere, the general compensatory law should be, with an understanding between the two people, when they first get together, the general principle, codified principle should be, if you strike me, that's the female talking now, to the male, if you strike me deliberately and willfully with the intention of doing harm to me, this relationship or this arrangement that we have, which is really not not a relationship at that point, this arrangement that we have is over forever. Do not contact me for any reason, ever. It's like I don't exist and you don't exist in this world anymore, in our interaction with each other. This is over permanently. One lick is all it takes. And that should be understood from the beginning. That should be a part of particularly black people's code. Because black people, you know, the whip was on our backs every day, constantly. Chains around our necks and ankles, constantly. Hold my magnolias while I whip my boy. That's the slave master. See, so we shouldn't be inflicting that type of nonsense on each other when we have had it inflicted on us for so long. Where's my whip? Go get my horse whip. I got to find my boy. He's around here somewhere. I got to find my gal. She needs a good whipping. They're getting out of hand here on the plantation. We shouldn't be passing that type of stuff on. And then you choose a person and say that this is the person that I want to spend time with. This is the person I'm engaged in sex with. And then you're going to inflict bodily harm on that person. It's not logical. Everything in counter-racist codification is based on logic.
Yes, sir. 1-877-932-9766 is the number that you can call to get on with Mr. Fuller. We do have a caller on the line. Go ahead, caller. What is your call for Mr. Fuller?
My question is, you speak about justice. You say that it's ensuring that no one is mistreated. Those who need the most constructive help can get the most constructive help, and that there's no legal definition for the word justice. And I know you haven't remedied the racist problem, but I just want to know from your imagination, what does a planet practicing a system of justice look like? I mean, like, who determines who gets constructive help? And what makes you think your constructive help is better than my constructive help? Or does a non-white person with, let's say, 3 biscuits give one of his biscuits to another non-white person? Or do both of those non-white persons go seek a white person for a biscuit? I mean, what does a world practicing a system of justice look like?
Well, that's what we don't know because we've never had it. So therefore, we examine things as we go along and say, what is the most constructive result? I mean, fire will burn, water is wet. We just start with some of the elements, the basics. I mean, when is a person hurting? How much is the hurt? We start measuring things. Everything is by comparison. This is the only way that you can ascertain what justice is. And so that's an evolutionary process. You have 10 people in a room, and you just start with, okay, everybody in here needs some help. I'm giving this as an example. We're assuming that everybody in here needs some help because people do need help of some kind every day, whether they're aware of it or not. but everybody needs some type of help. So you just say, okay, we got 10 people in this room. We're assuming everybody needs help. Who do we start with? We start with the person by just having everybody present what they say they need help with. Then, through that process, you find out who needs help the most. And you even discuss that. Because some person will say, well, that doesn't seem like you need more help than me. Well, let's look at it. Let's examine it. Because we're talking about constructive help here. And you'll say, well, what is constructive? By the results. Now, one person might say, well, I really need some help because I'm a drug addict and I need a fix right now. Okay, well, the person does need help, but getting some more drugs, is that the way to do the most constructive thing for that person? And the record shows, with the results coming in, no, more drugs is not the antidote. More cocaine, so that the person can keep getting that high. No, you come off of the cocaine. Trial and error has shown that that's the best way to go. Just get rid of the addiction to the cocaine altogether, rather than to keep feeding the habit. Because to the person who has the habit, that's the way to take care of it. Give me some more cocaine. Because when I no longer have it, I'm non-functional. I can't do the things that I want to do. I don't feel good. I feel awful. I get sick. So this is the process by which you do it. And you go through each and every person in that room, find out what they need help with, give the person that needs help the most the help that the person needs, if it's possible to do so. Then you go to the person who is being mistreated, find out what the mistreatment is, and eliminate the mistreatment. What's the best process for getting rid of the mistreatment? Because justice is about guaranteeing that no one is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And I think through that simple process, it can be done. And it can be done in a short order, short period of time. And just follow that process through every day in every situation throughout the entire world. Because right now we have no standard for something called justice. That's why we have chaos, which is mostly what we have.
Yes, sir. 1-877-932-9766 is the number that you would call if you'd like to speak with Mr. Fuller. Caller, we have another caller. Go ahead, caller. Your question for Mr. Fuller?
Hello, me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Hello, Mr. Fuller. I want to say again that your information has helped me a lot to how things in the world. But how much responsibility do you see on the individual person? Because I think we have to take personal responsibility, and I think that's what you're alluding to. But when I go and try to talk to many different people, so many people don't want to talk about this type of things because they say it's too serious. I even met this black girl from the Bahamas who said she just wants to be happy. She doesn't want to think about these types of things. So what should you do? And this has been a consistent thing. Like, I've been talking to many different random people, and that the majority of people have not even wanted to go into this type of conversation because so many people say, oh, we shouldn't talk about it anymore. Oh, it's bad. Stop talking about racism. That's in the past. But there's very few people like that I meet who are willing to. So what are your views on that, about how so many people don't even want to go into these types of conversations?
That's understandable. People say, just listen to what people say. And they always go from where people are, not from where you want them to be. That won't work. That simply will not work. That's not compensatory. Go from where the person is. That is compensatory. So what you do is just ask questions. And 4 basic questions are, what do you want to do? People want to do something every day, all day. All people.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. People,
Yes,
it's
I'd like to
4
make a
questions
comment.
that you ask. What do you want to do? Because everybody wants to do something all day long. You want to go to the next corner and catch the bus so that you can go across town and do something when you get across town. Everybody wants to do something. The teacher in the classroom wants to teach. The people who are in the classroom teach what? Teach whatever the subject is for the assignment for the day. And the student sitting there listening may be looking out the window, and what they want to do is get dismissed so they can get out there for recess. Everybody wants to do something every minute of the day. Everybody wants to do something. People have wants. So you always ask people, okay, you don't want to talk about racism. You want to be happy. You want to do this. You want to do that. I mean, but you're being vague. So let's get specific about what you want to do. What do you want to do? That's the question. Then the next question is, why do you want to do it? Whatever it is you want to do, you have a reason for wanting to do it. Why do you want to do what you want to do? And then the third question is, how do you plan to do what you want to do? Do you have a plan? You want to do something. You know why you want to do it. What's your plan for doing it? And that's usually when it starts getting kind of hazy, you might say. The average person usually doesn't have a plan. They want to be happy, but they don't have a plan for being happy. They just want to be happy. Well, the white supremacists, if you're black, are not going to allow that. So that's out. That's when you get that reality check. So you don't have to tell them nothing beyond that. If they say they just want to be happy, okay, just go on about the world and think, just go skipping down the road and think that this happiness is just going to, come your way. What's going to come your way if you're black is a whole bunch of misery, okay? Otherwise, it wouldn't be any need for me to have written a book. If we could just wake up in the morning and just decide, I'm going to be happy. And this happened, it just fell out of the sky all over you. And everywhere you went, there was no problems. Everybody just opened all the doors. I mean, everybody's on that yellow brick road going to Oz. Oh, yes, everybody wants that. I wanted that. Want it now. But it doesn't happen that way in a system of racism. So you don't have to preach racism to people. If they say, well, racism doesn't bother me, I'm not interested in it and all like that. I just want to be happy. I don't want to be talking that stuff. I'm not interested in racism. I'm not interested in any of these isms. I'm just interested in being happy. Well, you just go skipping on down the road and see how happy you're going to be. I mean, you're heading for a train wreck, but sometimes you just have to wait until the person has that train wreck. Okay? So then you go to the fourth question. And that last question was, how do you plan to do what you want to do? But then the fourth question is, what do you expect the constructive result to be? And that's the key. Because everybody, for themselves, wants a constructive result out of whatever it is that they intend to do, that they want to do. And this, and just listen to the answers to the questions. And then you measure what they do when they go into operation. That's all. You can't hit people over the head. And you're not supposed to try to give them a problem that they perceive that they don't have. Under compensatory law, that's not compensatory. That's a no-no. You don't even try to do that. If the person says, hey, I'm okay with everything that's going on. I don't have no problems. Why are you trying to give me a problem? That is a correct question. And the answer is, I'm not trying to give you one. I thought you might have one or perceive that you do. But if you have no problems, more power to you. You don't try to give a person a problem that they don't perceive that they have. I wrote my book for people who perceive that there are a lot of problems in the world that need solving.
You're listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively here on TalkTainMenRadio.com. We have another caller, Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, caller.
Yes, Dr. Fuller, within the deception and confusion paradigm that you spoke about last week, Janae and Ray Rice don't even really they don't have a relationship, or they don't have a black relationship. They have a relationship that's been constructed and put together by white supremacy, correct? But I wanted you to expound on this. I wanted you to hear your take on this. Idris Elba is the black woman's new sex symbol. He stars in a movie called No Good Deed with a sister known as Taraji P. Henson, and he is an escaped convict, a black man, escaped convict, who was put in prison for raping and beating women. And he goes to her house, and he goes to her house, and he wreaks havoc and terror on her. All right. So here it is. That this is the black woman's sex symbol, Idris Elba, and then we go into the sports thing, and Ray Rice and his beating of his woman, and then we go to Josh Shaw, which was before that. Josh Shaw, but he said that they said that he was in a domestic violence dispute, right? And that, but they left that alone and went ahead and took him as a liar. Then McDonald for San Francisco, they said that he was in a domestic violence dispute. Everything we keep getting that's being pushed on us, this deception, is to and fro about making the black man the villain. But we have the police in Ferguson, and we have the police in Arizona, and we have the police in the California Highway Patrol that sat there and beat a black woman in the face 9 to 11 times. Right? But we don't say nothing about that. And this goes back into what you was talking about, that deception and control. I'm going to finish this. Go ahead, Dr. Fuller.
Well, I kind of lost the essence of the question there. So, what is it? What was the essence of your question?
Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
he was. Mr. Fuller was asking you, because you had a lot to say. He was basically asking you to what is the essence of your question, so that he can address it.
The essence, the first part was a question. I just wanted him to expound on his deception and confusion paradigm within the white supremacist schema. Okay, I just wanted him to expound on that, given the methodology that they used. You know what I'm saying? Because, the whole Ray Rice situation, Josh Shaw, McDonald, Idris Elba starring in this movie, it all is a deceptive and confusing methodology being used by white supremacists.
Okay.
That's all. That's what I was saying.
Okay, caller, hang on. We're going to take a break, and then we'll be right back. TalkTameRadio.com. Check us out on WCRS FM 98.3 Wednesdays and Sunday evenings. Blogs and podcasts are available. Download TalkTameRadio.com app to your cell or tablet. We go where you go. Radio, the way it should be heard. Coming up next, Mr. Fuller will answer that question and your calls here on TalkTameRadio.com.
TalkTameRadio.com is the premier internet radio platform offering 40-plus talk radio-style programs professionally produced, optimized for online distribution, featuring Columbus, Ohio on-air personalities. TalkTimeRadio.com offers listeners diverse programming options covering topics such as arts and culture, love, life and relationships, technology, religion, paranormal activities, local and national politics, women's issues, alongside health and wellness. Listeners can access their favorite TalkTimeRadio.com programs free of cost through the website. Download the TTR app to your cell phone and you can take us wherever you go. We have programs on demand to fit your schedule through our podcast. The address is TalkTainmentRadio.com.
Saturday, September 13th, the New Faith Baptist Church of Christ will sponsor a community festival. The festival will be held at 955 Oak Street from 11 a.m. until 5 p.m.
There will be fire safety, memory testing, face painting, hand massages, blood pressure checks, diabetes checks, HIV testing.
Yolanda, you can go on with that all day long. There will be lots of great activities.
Free prizes and much more.
This event is free and open to the public. For more information, call 258-9959. That's 258-9959.
Have you ever wished you could spend more time with your kids, or maybe quality time with your spouse, when you can actually have an uninterrupted conversation? Do you owe your dad a little catch-up time? Well, it's time to reconnect, and no activity can bond a family together quite like boating and fishing. I mean, think of all the great experiences you had as a kid when you went boating or fishing. Well, guess what? It's still great. Boating and fishing are the perfect opportunities for your family to get away, to talk, to laugh, to create new memories. So take someone you love out on the water and see where the water takes you. If you haven't been on the water in a while and you're not sure where to start, or if you just like to have some helpful tips for your next trip, please visit TakeMeFishing.org. This has been a public service of TalkTainmentRadio.com. Radio, the way it should be heard.
In the small town of Elmira, New York, a boy was born into an all-American family. The odds of him opening his own clothing store at the age of 18? 1 in 138,000. Excited to be a part of pop culture, he packed for the big city. The odds of him achieving his dream in the fashion industry? 1 in 23 million. The odds of having a child diagnosed with autism? 1 in 68. I am Tommy Hilfiger, and my family is affected by autism. I encourage you to learn more at autismspeaks.org/signs. Early diagnosis can make a lifetime of difference.
Brought to you by Autism Speaks, the Ad Council, and TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
Goodwill is a global social services enterprise and the leading nonprofit provider of job training programs and career services in the United States and Canada. To pay for its program, Goodwill sells donated clothes and other household items in more than 2,700 stores and online at shopgoodwill.com. Goodwill uses the revenue earned from these sales to fund job training, employment placement services, and other community programs. The goal of the campaign is to increase goods donations to Goodwill, inspire an emotional connection to the Goodwill brand, and to elevate preference for Goodwill.
Supporting minority education. I'm Sean Booker, damn it, from the Melting Pot. I'm here to tell you that as the mother of a high school senior, I know due to financial circumstances, many of America's deserving minority students do not have access to a college education. Since 1944, the United Negro College Fund has sought to provide one. Since 1972, the beginning of this campaign, UNCF has helped more than 300,000 talented students earn a college degree. I'm Sean Booker, damn it. Give a helping hand.
The United Independent Compensatory Code System concept by Neely Fuller is considered as one of the substantial and basic books for understanding and effectively countering racism. Neely Fuller will turn upside down everything you've heard and everything you think you know about racism and how it works. Call area code 202-484-5461. 202-484-5461.
I think I'm entitled. You want answers. You can't handle the truth.
You got the power.
Alrighty, welcome back to TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller. And if you would like to get in contact with the show, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766, and we will be happy, or Mr. Fuller would be happy to address your question. We do have a caller on the line, but before we get to the caller's answer to the question, I'd like Mr. Fuller to promote his book one more time, the name of it, and how you can get it.
Textbook, workbook for thought, speech, and/or action for victims of white supremacy. You can get the book, the basic book, and the additional book, the Word Guide, if you are so disposed, by going to producejustice.com. And a brief description of the basic book and the compensatory counter-racist Word Guide will come up on your screen, and the method for ordering. That's producejustice.com. Producejustice.com.
All righty. Our first caller, could you kind of condense that so Mr. Fuller can answer your question?
I think he did.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was thinking about it during the break.
Okay.
I think he's talking about just a deception. Yes, the white supremacists, their methods are deceit and violence. That is what they use to ensure their power. The power of deception, of fooling people, and then when they can't fool them, they use direct violence to keep them in line. They break out the whip, or they break out the gun, or poisons, or whatever, and keep them back in line. Deceive them, and if you can't deceive them, then use brute force, until you can get them in line where you can talk to them again, and once you can talk to them again, then you start deceiving them again. So they go from deceit to direct violence, and then from direct violence back to deceit, or sometimes a combination of both. But these are the tools that they use. These are the methods, the basic strategies. So this also affects the minds of the people that they have conquered, the non-white people. So we do the same thing. We deceive each other, and we use direct violence against each other. Deception is indirect violence. So we'll use indirect violence, that's the deception, fooling each other, pulling little tricks on each other, and then we use direct violence because this is what we have been taught. This is what we get from our masters. We haven't been taught very much outside of that. And this is why we are the way that we are. So, codification is about what to do about it, counter-racist codification. And what to do about it, to simplify it, you just keep it nice and neat and straightforward. When black males are interacting with black females, there should be a worldwide understanding. First time, last time. This is a simple way to remember it. First time, last time. What does that mean? That means from the female, if that male hits you one time, strikes you willfully, deliberately, strikes you, knocks you down, does any kind of physical violence to you, first time, last time. Now, what does that mean? That means you don't hang around for the second time. First time is the last time. Even if you're under the same roof and you can't leave right away. But the understanding should be in his mind and in yours. See, this is all about getting understanding. Understanding between the two people. Understanding that when I hit you, that's an announcement. I'm never going to hit you again because you're not going to be around for me to hit you again because this so-called arrangement that we have is over forever. That is an announcement. That's that divorce action, you might say. We don't have an arrangement anymore. We don't have an understanding of any kind anymore. even if you're under the same roof. We're just two strangers under the same roof. I mean, that lick has been passed. One time, that's all it takes. And this so-called relationship, this arrangement, whatever you call it, it is dead, and it's dead forever. There's no comeback. There's no second act. There's no making up. There's no item number 2 on the list. You no longer exist, and I no longer exist. That's the agreement that you should go in with. You shouldn't wait until things get hot and then try to figure out, well, how are we going to settle this? Am I going to hit you, or are you going to hit me, or or what are we going to do from here? No, that should be ironclad. That should be like steel, as a part of the black code. Black people among themselves should have that agreement. Honey, if I ever hit you, you know what that means, according to the code. That means we're through. If I ever get so angry with you that I hit you, that means we don't belong together under no circumstance. This is a total mismatch. And it manifested itself in me even wanting to strike you. I mean, if that desire to hit you is even there, then that means right there, I'm not with the person I should be with. I don't need to be with anybody that I want to hit. What kind of sense does that make? That is complete insanity. You want to be with somebody that you have the notion that you want to hit them, you want to strike them, you want to do them bodily harm. That makes no sense at all for you even want to be around a person like that. That would drive you to that type of thinking. And she definitely shouldn't be with you, because she does not have any business with any black person ever wanting to strike her for any reason other than direct self-defense. I mean, and that self-defense has to be at a level where it's life-threatening, where you would be dead, like she's swinging an axe or something. But anything short of that, just having an argument, spent the rent money or something like that, oh no, that just means, hey, we agree to disagree now. I mean, we need to depart. But it's not going to be any hitting. It's not going to be any hitting, because hitting is absolute.
Yes,
There's no making up from that.
Yes, sir.
Second time. It's no such thing as a second time. There's no such thing as a second lick. The first lick does it. That should be understood.
All righty.
Okay, Dr. Fuller, what you just described, and I understand it, and I understand what you're saying, but that is what white supremacists wanted in the deceptive confusion that they started. They want them to be separate. They want them to be separate. And you say if there's a first time, because remember you said there's no relationship, there's no true relationship between the black female and black male, and unless or that white supremacists haven't constructed. Just like you say that there's no black parent, there's no such thing as a black parent. Okay, so what I'm saying is, if we're going to say, well, if a black man hits a black woman, they are to separate. That should be written in stone. And I understand the reason why you're saying this, but we have to understand that the black mind, under the auspices of white supremacy, the psyche of the black mind under the auspices of white supremacy is thinking along them lines. And I remember you said hit, kick, punch, kill, hunt. This is their culture. And you just said it. That's their thing is violence and deception. So if the black mind, the black relationship between the black female and the black male is
so your question is, I just gave the solution. So you got to have a solution. You can't keep going around in a circle. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
You can't keep going around in a circle. And I just gave the solution. Period.
Did they separate?
No question mark after that.
Okay. All right.
Just
Thanks,
don't
Doctor.
do it.
All right. Thank you, caller. Okay, we have another caller on the line, and then I have a statement from Terrence Howard via TMZ. You got to stay tuned for that. Go ahead, caller.
Good morning. Mr. Fuller, based on what you just said about the striking of the female, I was just wondering, now, how would you apply that to the system of white supremacy that strikes us and murders our children? What kind of attitude should we adopt against people that murder our children? Do we have the same type unforgiving attitude to deal with these people?
Oh, you mean somebody who killed somebody?
Who kills and murders our children?
I'm asking that question. Someone who willfully and deliberately kills someone.
Right.
Is this what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, willfully, deliberately, and non-justly, one person killing another.
Yes.
I'm trying to get clarity on what you're saying, so that I can tell what the code says about that. Hello?
Yes. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Is that what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Answer is as follows. Whomever willfully, deliberately, and unjustly kills another person should kill him or herself and put in a place where it's very convenient for him or her to do so. In other words, if Neely Fuller goes out here willfully, deliberately, and unjustly kills anybody, now this should be world law. When I am apprehended, I should be put in a place of greater confinement, a cell of some type, and kept there with the same weapon, if it can be found, or a similar one, but one that is very efficient in killing. Gun, in this particular case, I would say in most cases. Kept there with that same weapon, or one similar, or one that is just as efficient, or more efficient, for killing oneself. And kept there, fed once a day until I make up my mind to kill myself, or until all of the killing everywhere in the world comes to a stop. One or the other, whichever comes first. That's the code. That should be the world code. That's the only code that I advocate for that type of thing. No exceptions. Kill somebody willfully, deliberately, and non-justly. You go into greater confinement and be kept there until you kill yourself. You like killing so well, kill yourself. That's how that works. I mean, that makes sense.
So you're saying that the family of that victim should not go into a state of saying, well, we forgive the person that murdered our family member. They should feel that that person that did the murdering should get what you just described.
I don't know you. You willfully, deliberately, and kill someone. You got to apologize, not to the people who are still here. You apologize to the person that you killed. The person who is still here is still here. I mean, if you're going to compensate, that's the law of compensation. You take somebody out of here unjustly, since you didn't bring them here. You take them out of here, you're so arrogant. Okay, take yourself out. I mean, because you said you preferred death. You showed that you preferred death when you killed someone, gang banging or whatever you want to call it, but you did it unjustly. Now, if you did it as self-defense, that's different. You're entitled to do that. In fact, that's your duty to do that. But you go out here and hunt somebody down and kill them. I don't care what your reason is. When you deliberately go and kill someone deliberately, willfully, deliberately, and non-justly, I want to underline non-justly. You weren't justified in doing it. Then you have a duty to your Creator. You didn't really take something away from the person themselves as such. There's another entity here. That person had a Creator. So you're so arrogant that you're going to take somebody out of the world, because this is what the white supremacists love doing, because they love to play God, okay? But our message should be, oh, no, you take somebody out. Take yourself out. And I don't believe in having anybody being hired to take someone and put them on some bed somewhere and stick a needle in them and get paid for killing somebody. You're perpetuating the same thing that the person just did.
Wow.
I mean, you got hired guns in these penitentiaries and all like that to throw a switch on somebody or to hang somebody from the neck. Or you get a firing squad and pay somebody to go out there and shoot somebody up against a wall. No, let the person have the major opportunity of killing him or herself. They should feel honored in doing so. All these gangbangers out here, gang members and whatnot, that's what should happen to them. Every last one of them. Be marched right into that cell and say, you're going to be fed one meal a day. You're not going to talk to nobody. You're not going to see anybody, because you don't have any business talking to anybody or seeing anybody, because you have shown that you have contempt for people, including yourself.
You're listening.
You insulted all of the people on the planet by killing someone unjustly. Now, insult yourself by your own hand. You kill somebody by your own hand, even Stephen. Let's get real here. Let's have a type of world that we should have had in the first place.
You're listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, radio the way it should be heard. I want to read a statement. This just came off the press from Terrence Howard via TMZ. This is Terrence Howard speaking. He's saying, wow, Ray Rice? Nah, brah. Well, I guess he had to learn the hard way. His life is ruined. He's lost tens of millions of dollars. Dating black women will ruin your life. They always ruin a successful black man, and they wonder why we are running from them in droves. Moral of this story, leave the black woman in the ghetto. Get you a white girl. Terrence Howard said that via TMZ. Wow. Woo! You care to make a comment on that, Mr. Fuller, before we go to our next and final caller?
Well, I always say that people can express anything racial. That's a part of the code. Any victim of racism can give his or her opinion of what should be done in any of the areas of activity, and I have to just simply say to that, he said what he said. Okay. Now, that's his opinion.
Okay.
Now, what the code says, the part of the code that I have written, is that no, you always choose a non-white person, because non-white people have had racism inflicted upon them. So our behavior is a result of racism. But when I said that individual black lady that I struck, it just means, let's stop and think. Logically speaking, I had a reason, or thought that I had a reason for striking her. So that means that if I came up with some reason for striking her, we are incompatible. And she shouldn't want to be struck. That's a sickness.
Yes.
If you want to be hit by someone, so that should be an announcement. We should make that announcement before we even get into it. It should be understood. And I think it would work when everybody's on the same page going into the relationship.
Yes, sir.
See, now we're going into this relationship. Now, if you ever hit me, George, if you ever hit me, the relationship is over. Now, you understand that, don't you? And George says, yeah. Okay, but I don't anticipate hitting you, honey. I mean, I like you. I mean, and all like that. I love you, or whatever. All right? So, yeah, that goes with the territory. See, now, we both understand that, right? Yes, we both understand that. But if you ever lose your temper and hit me, then the relationship is over. You understand that, don't you? And he says yes. Now, it doesn't get no better than that. Codification is about it don't get no better than that. It does not get any better than that, to use correct English. Codification is all about doing the best possible thing that can be done. And that should be the relationship between non-white people all over the world. And going to white women, no, absolutely not. There shouldn't be any sexual intercourse between white and non-white until white supremacy no longer exists. The code says that explicitly, and for a very logical reason, because everything in the code is supposed to be based on logic, not emotion. Okay. So the logic is that a non-white person having sexual intercourse with a white person in the system of white supremacy further victimizes the non-white person. That's an absolute.
Okay.
That's based on logic.
And our final call. Go ahead, caller, quickly.
Hello. I wanted to start off with this quote. Most people are so passive that the idea of change has become connected to fear because of it being associated with action. And when I hear you and when I hear some of the callers calling and always talking about what other people are doing instead of what can they do as an individual person in their own individual lives. So I see many people getting distracted off of other people's lives and other people's stories. But it's like, what can we do as individual people? What am I doing right now to help stop it? And from what I see, most people don't want to do their part because many people are afraid of being judged for standing up. So what do you think about the people who are always getting distracted with other people's lives instead of what they can do now as an individual person? What do you think about that?
Well, that's exactly what my book is written for. Everything in the textbook for victims of white supremacy is directed toward the individual in all 9 areas of activity, not just in some: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. I have suggestions. They're just suggestions. I'm not dictating to anybody. I don't know that much. But these are just suggestions, compensatory suggestions about what each and every individual can do in each and every situation. Because you start correcting problems by starting with the individual person. There's no such thing as the masses. So that's why I said on Mr. Howard's comments, I can't criticize his comments. Why? Because I'm not the ultimate brain out here in everything that exists in the world. I don't have answers to my own problems. But everybody can contribute by giving his or her views to this thing called a race problem. That's the problem we are addressing. Every non-white person can give his or her views. And the only thing I can react to, according to the code, I'm duty-bound to simply say, he said what he said. I can't go any further than that. You just listen to what he said and see if that's the way you should go. It might be and it might not be. But then if you ask me what do I say, I said what I said. And I just said it. That non-white people should try to do the best that they can, but get rid of that hitting. Start off with that. That's out altogether. But don't go and have sexual intercourse with white people under the system of white supremacy, because that just makes the system of white supremacy stronger, not weaker.
All righty. Well, you see our time has gone, and, man, we could go on and on with this, but we won't. Thank you, Mr. Fuller, and thank you for all the callers. TalkTainmenTradio.com, the world's greatest radio, and radio the way it should be heard.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com.